Greetings, my fellow players. It is I, Kale Elber, coming back to you finally with the ending of that Halloween adventure we did, the Tales of the Harkenwold. And if you recall correctly, the fate of your various characters was not yet certain. We had not come to a solid conclusion by the end of our gaming session. And so I've written up something here to narrate to you, for you, that will kind of put a little capstone at the end of the adventure, bring the story to a close, and allow us to lead into the next adventure, if that's something we so choose to do. So here we go. We're going into Escape from the Harkenwold by Kale Albert. In the mist-shrouded Ogase crypts, a band of grave robbers face off against the stuff of nightmares. After pillaging the tomb of Gertrude von Strussel, this gang of thugs found themselves surrounded by the shambling corpses of freshly risen dead from disheveled graves. "Run!" barked Wallace, the dour dwarven bounty hunter. His heart was never in this job, and he only agreed out of a reluctant sense of duty. But now he feared the ancestors' wrath was upon them, and he would die with shame, the worst of all fates for a dwarf. Quick on his feet and eager to seek an exit, Anton dashed into the obscuring fog. At the black iron gates that loomed at the entrance to Moore's garden, his advance was halted by a line of shambling monsters. "Brains," they called, their shuffling gait drawing the horrors closer. At their fore, a lumbering behemoth towered over the others. Fresh blood stained the shirt from his grievous wound where his throat was gouged. Wirt, the dim-witted yet dutiful grave warden, was now a member of that damnable undead horde. Seeking to dance his way with quick and nimble strides, Anton dashed forward, soon discovering that the clasping claws and the eternal hunger of the risen dead do not fall prey easily to feints, and their sheer numbers threatened to drag him down. Zephyra found her battle stance, armed with that great pole-hooked staff. At first, she flung herself into the fray, eager to chop down those that stood between her and her payday. As more of the corpses rose and shuffled through the mist, though, she abandoned the hope of winning through brute and battle. Instead, she hewed her way toward retreat instead of victory. Among the slow advance of zombies, other, more feral creatures hungered for flesh with a desperation and a fury the brainless undead were incapable of. Ghouls, depraved monsters with filthy claws and ravenous bite, launched themselves at Cabarrus and Wallace. The pair whirled around, crossbow armed, and released their quarrels into the withered corpses. Wallace pinned one of the creatures to an ancient twisted oak. It snarled with futile rage, straining against the solid barb that held it. Cabarrus wounded and nearly felled the ghoul advancing toward him, but the thing rushed forward, heedless of pain. It was upon them in moments. Meanwhile, Krieger attempted to duck and hide his way down the path, more of the monsters emerging from the mist. It was soon evident to all that they were surrounded on all sides, in numbers far too vast to be fought back. The realization of their desperate plight gripped them, and for a moment panic threatened to overcome the rather tenuous bonds of camaraderie that held them together. But this group was built for grim deeds, and their staunch determination and stubborn will forced on a singular task: to escape. Wirt raised his trusty shovel, used so often to place poor souls into Moore's care. Now, the blade of the tool was brought down upon Anton, digging deep into his shoulder and causing a sickening crunch. The thief's collarbone cracked under the blow, and his head spun with pain. Still, he fought to wrest himself free and slip around the massive abomination before he was made to join them in the garden forever. Krieger saw the poor thief's plight. They had been partners once, nearly even friends. "Huh, better you than me," quipped the grim doctor, using the perils of his companion to pragmatically find an opening and slip past beyond the iron gates that promised freedom. Rise! A rumbling whisper seemed to echo across the garden. Freshly risen corpses burst forth their claws from grave earth, invigorated by that terrible necromancy. One of these claws gripped the doctor, seizing him as he traipsed over a line of headstones, trying to find an exit. "Oh, no you don't!" An axe whirled through the air, severing the undead hand that held Krieger. The surly dwarf grunted as he hoisted the lanky doc to his feet. "If I can get you clear, our debt will be settled. Don't go and die on me now." And he pushed him forward. The sharp barb of the fisherman's gaff sank into the zombie's skull, letting a putrid stench of ichor and rot spill from the gashing wound. With a struggle, the thing released its grip on Anton. Together, Zephyra and Anton cut, hew, and dodged their way through the final mob, careful to stay wide of the dreadful swing of Wirt's clumsy attacks. Together, the four breached the iron gates and ran down the twisting cobblestone path. In the shroud of fog, they are barely able to follow its elusive trajectory, the loose stones and gnarled root threatening to end their flight. Behind them, the moans and wail of the undead faded. As they neared the barge, they all looked at one another, as though realizing the truth all simultaneously. "Cabros!" Wide-eyed Anton whispered with dread. He did not flee with them down that path somehow, being lost in the obscuring fog or the confusion of battle. They paused before boarding the river barge that could take them to safety. They waited with bated breath, straining to hear some sign. One heartbeat. Another. Until the tension between moments grew too great to bear. With a sad nod, Zephyr jumped aboard and prepared to shove off. The others joined quickly, fear pushing them forward, stronger than hope could make them stay. As they found the current of the Teufel River and sped back toward Ubersreich, Wallace took a long quaff from his cask of ale. "Never again," he muttered. "Once we collect our damned money, I'll never dishonor my ancestors like this again. It is foul work, and I'll have no more a part in it." As the cries faded from the garden, Cabirus knew that the others had made it clear. The coils of smoke from the holy censer mingled with the thick fog, and the flesh-starved undead began to circle around him. They were hesitant to enter where that heavy scent of myrrh, clove, and herbs assaulted their unholy senses. It would not abate their hunger, however, and in time they would come for him. Grimly, he set to load his crossbow again and make himself ready. "Halt!" the deep voice rang out, and the undead horde responded with a singular purpose. a tenebrous finger. A tenebrous figure crept forward, obscured by mist and shadow. Within that obfuscation, though, Cabras could see, or really more feel, the evil eyes glaring at him, that gaze burning into him, clawing at his mind. Sweat beaded on the grave warden's brow, and his heart raced with terror. "You," it growled. "You could be the one I seek." As this figure spoke, it stalked forward. At first it crawled on all fours like a beast. It seemed to have the muscled flank and spiked spine of a dangerous and terrible predator. But as it approached, it stood, taller than any man. It spread its forelimbs, displaying the looming wingspan like that of a bat, revealing a grotesque and horrifically snarling face. Although bestial, there were elements of that strange creature's visage that also hearkened to a human origin. And as it folded its great wings around it, the creature stood completely erect, the leathery folds wrapped around it like a dread cloak. Suddenly, it seemed to have the countenance of a man rather than any animal. But still the eyes pierced into Cabros, and those eyes followed him through his nightmares. This is undoubtedly the thing that was released from the Zitra, the crypts. This ancient evil, now free due to his own meddling. "I am in need of a servant, mortal," the creature spoke with a strange and ancient accent. But there was enough in that voice to grant the seeming of nobility. "You have been instrumental in my release, and now you have gifted to me another graveyard to pilfer and feed from. The town's children made passable thralls and adequate meals, but my designs require a more capable aid. I will let you cling to your life, mortal, if you desire. In exchange, you will bond yourself to my will and enact the errands that I cannot perform in the daylight or in the realms of men. What say you?" For a moment, Cabras contemplated turning the crossbow on himself and giving a sweet and sudden release from this hellish torment. But his mind had been shattered too thoroughly by the undead presence, and he soon found himself on his knees, trembling. With a laugh, the ancient evil enacted some sort of fell ritual that bonded Cabras's brain and his will, the details of which his mortal mind could not fathom. Soon he found himself running in a mad dash through the woods, the taste of blood in his mouth. He was pale, much weaker than before. Gashes of claw marks ripped across his skin, his clothes in tatters. Confused, he leapt with desperation from a high cliff, escaping the clutching shadows of the Harkenwold. He plunged deep into the cold waters of the Tufo. "Gods!" Zephyr shouted, startled. The motley gang soon recognized Cabras and fished him out of the water. It seemed as though he was dragged through the realms of chaos itself, but somehow, miraculously, still alive. "What in the hell's happened back there?" demanded Wallace. "I said to run." And I thought you'd be right behind me. The others had gathered around as well, curious to hear how anyone could have gotten out after they had fled. But trembling with cold and fright both, the poor man passed out before any answers were forthcoming. It was a long trek back to Ubersreich, but they managed to spy the high walls of this and the towers of the city before the sun sank low beyond the horizon. The horror of the Harkenwold lay behind them.